Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sober is Dope podcast. I'm your host, Pop Buchanan, and I am really excited to be here today with a very, very special guest. Today on the show, we have Lizzie Allan, who is the founder of Hilarapy. And Lizzie Allan is a coach, registered therapeutic counselor, comedy writer, teacher, speaker, author, leader, performer, and she has a degree in comedy writing. She's very awesome, and she has a beautiful, beautiful company where she helps people heal on their journey. How are you doing today, Lizzie?
I'm really well. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for having me. I tell you, without comedy and that escape into just humor, I don't know where I would be, and when I remember being in rehab and I would watch Martin Lawrence and I would just watch the Martin show or whatever was on. And, we would make up or have jokes and stuff, and that helped us heal. It actually broke the ice with some of the guys and stuff like that. So I think what you're doing is really marvelous, and I love it. And I got a lot of healing just from watching your content online. So for everyone in the Sober is Dope community who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, your origin story, your recovery story, and how you got to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name's Lizzie. I'm just over 10 years clean and sober.
Yay.
And I was, I kind of went down the track of using drugs and alcohol from quite a young age, and got lost pretty quickly down that path. There's a lot of addiction and mental health issues in my family. So I come from a broken home. My dad fell into this disease of addiction and gambling and all of that malarkey. So yes, we kind of, we grew up around people who were drinking and using drugs and who had some, some traumatic childhoods. I don't think anyone really escapes from experiencing trauma to some degree or other in their childhood, but that's the way it goes, right? Shapes us, right. Gives us character.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So my dad was in recovery, and it's a big story, so I'm not going to go into it, but I've had crazy consequences quite early on. I ended up in a psychiatric ward at the age of 19. I thought I was Jesus reincarnated. I thought I was going to be a famous rapper. Maybe I will become a famous rapper. Right. We don't know yet, do we? Sometimes see what unfolds.
Yeah.
And that, at that point, I still wasn't ready to quit drugs, and took another 10 years, but I knew that I had to stop. I just couldn't, the old rat race of kind of trying to control it, geographicals, everything like that. And then life seems to be all right for a bit, and then it spirals out of control again and off in the madness. I don't know if that's your experience.
No, you know what? You are like the first person I spoke to that hits it on the nail for me. I'm still a rapper. I call myself a lyricist, but from a child, I've been doing hip hop and stuff. But when I was younger, that was part of the identity, and that was part of the addiction. It went hand in hand. That rap life, right? Being out there, popping bottles, being in the clubs, being an entertainer, the center of attention, that's the vibe that we had to give off. But the problem is with someone like you and myself, we were addicted. We had the allergy of our addiction. So it would spiral out of control naturally, opposed to some of our other people that we work with. Like my partner didn't have an alcohol addiction. So he was fine, but I was the one who had the bottles and I'll go crazy. In addition to that, I didn't necessarily think I was Jesus incarnate, but I was extremely spiritual. And I definitely had that vibe where I was like almost living that prophetic life. I was out there talking to people, breaking stuff down, talking about everything from the Anunnaki to the Nephilim and all of this crazy stuff. And sometimes people would think it was some delusion there, but I think it was passion fused with the addiction, which may have become problematic. Can you relate to that? Were you crazy, for lack of a better word, or just passionate fused with an addiction?
Well, it's interesting that you brought in that spiritual element, because a big part of my desire to use drugs was to get connection with other people,
Mm.
feel all right in connection with other people. But also I felt like I was getting a connection with a higher power. And I've always had a really strong connection to my higher power. I've always felt guided and moved. I've always kind of gone, okay, I think I need to go over here now. And then I go. And then it unfolds and, you know, and I land on my feet, even in addiction, even though it was a lot of me pushing my own will. So I really relate to what you were saying about kind of all that sort of, I would talk people's heads off. And that was really part of why I kind of had to stop,
Mm.
because the stuff that I was kind of coming to know in my spiritual, I don't know, evaluation of life or whatever, I was coming to realize that I don't need alcohol or drugs to feel this amazing connection to spirit, this amazing connection to my creative life, which
Yes.
brings me like forward into comedy, performing, writing, music, all of that stuff. When I do that stuff, I just become like at one, you know, I get my joy, time disappears. And the more I get to know myself through recovery, through therapeutic processes, through talking to other people and getting to know myself in relationship to others, the more vulnerable my art becomes. And the more vulnerable my art becomes, the more connective it is. Do you get that
It
experience
makes
yourself?
absolute sense. So I'm right there with you, and this is why, because I'm a better artist now in my sobriety than I ever was in my addiction. You have people that's on the fence about that, but they love the volatile, explosive nature of my addicted art, right? When I rap like that.
Yeah.
But now I'm actually able to complete things and I'm connected. The music is more me, it's more authentic, it's less embellishment. You know, I don't have 300 helicopters, 2 boats, and 100 models, right? It's more or less me rapping about me and my honest self. And I'm more vulnerable that way because
Mhm.
I have to use the good, the bad, and ugly within me to convey my art form. And I can't hide behind the mask of addiction and making things up. I have to be 100% accountable for my art. And that's where the vulnerability come in. Even my first album that I actually completed after 30 years of rapping, due to my sobriety, I'm actually able to complete this body of work. It talks about the death of my father, which was the foundation of my addiction. It talks about my trauma, and it talks about my recovery and the good and the bad. And that's vulnerable because now I'm rapping about stuff that hits real home, like breakups, trauma, apologizing. And so I could understand that. And that's a beautiful thing. So you're setting a great example for people in recovery like myself. It's okay to be vulnerable, which brings me to, I want to jump for a minute, then we're going to come back here. But I want to jump to an aspect of your therapy that it almost brought tears to me, right? So I was watching you online. You was in a room surrounded by people and everyone repeated, will you help me remember that it's okay to be vulnerable, right? And then you guys responded, do you accept that it's okay to be vulnerable? And then the man said, I accept. So I love that. Can you talk to us about vulnerability and that part of your therapy and your story?
Hmm. So I learned that vulnerability is power,
Mm.
that actually I get a better assessment of the situation if I show up vulnerably and I check things out with other people. And that particular exercise that you're referring to is called the help me exercise. And it comes up when people aren't fully trusting themselves and that they need to ask for help. And then when we get everyone in a circle, it's unbelievably powerful when you look somebody in the eye and you say, can you help me to remember a truth about me? And then it's true for you too, right? So when
Yes.
you do that exercise, tears come to our eyes, right? It's that kind of power. The whole room drops and we connect as a group, which really empowers us when we're moving towards something as scary as getting up on stage and doing comedy for the first time, which is, you know, you're taking it out of context of my therapeutic comedy course, just for those out there who don't know what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I learned personally, I learned to shut my feelings down when I was growing up because um, because of the difficulty that I was growing up in, I just didn't realize I thought it was unsafe for me to have feelings. It wasn't true, but that's what I made myself believe. And so I shut down. And so I didn't really learn. I thought I should only show up the good parts of me, the parts that were charming, entertaining, make you laugh. If I couldn't show up like that, then I might as well just leave. And I couldn't maintain that in relationships. So I'd always leave them. I'd always go, and I'm talking about friendships, everything. I would just leave communities and go off and live in another part of the world, just because I was so afraid of you seeing who I thought I was underneath it all.
Yes.
But in recovery, I learned that I could actually show up. And if you didn't like me for who I told you I was, then I would have to make a decision based on that, rather than saying, well, I'm going to protect myself against you finding out. I would just say, hey, by the way, this is me. And if you went, oh, great, then we could just relax together and be friends. But if you said, oh, I can't accept that, then I pretty much don't want to be around that person anyway. So that's what, I don't know if that had made any sense, but for me, that's what vulnerability means for me.
Everything you're saying makes perfect sense. And, I have a little bit of, I could relate to that. It's a little resentment there that I'm learning to release in the past, because I felt like, yeah, they call me Pop. I have the energy. I'm Pop Buchanan, and that was my thing. That was my theme and my vibe. But I just always felt like it was extremely exhausting maintaining that all the time. And I could relate. I know how you feel. It's like, well, if I show, and then you're young, I'm young, and it's like, if we show up as ourselves, we're still learning what that looks like, because we're so accustomed to being this other thing that it's just better just to leave, right? Or in some people's cases, they just show out really more. That's when the bad side of my addiction would show up. When I really got to a point of exhaustion from entertaining, I became belligerent, angry, and just I would mess the party up, opposed to bring joy to it, because I was just like, I'm tired of this, So sometimes you would do a self-sabotage with a relationship because you're tired of holding up this facade. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but the day I found my recovery, that was like a weight lifted off of me, because now I went from the guy swinging from the chandeliers to the quiet guy in the party that's like, well, I'll take a salsa and what type of food you have and who's playing the football game, right? And the crazy thing is, for anyone that knows me, I hate sports. And I'm never the quiet guy in the corner, and I never would eat. I would always drink. So people see me, they're like, yo, you changed so much. And I'm like, no, I didn't necessarily change. I healed. Right? So that's a beautiful thing. So I'm definitely out there. For anyone out there that's struggling with your addiction, listen, you could just let the weight go, right? Just let it go. It's okay to just be you, and let the people around you figure that out. It's not your job to figure it out. It's their job to figure it out and accept you for who you are. And you don't have to run in that way. So thank you for that. All right. So I want to talk about the UK. You said you was in the UK, then you moved to Canada, right? So what happened? What part of the journey was that? Was that part of the fleeing or setting a new stage? Or tell us about because I love the UK. We're friends of the UK, and so tell us about that journey.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'd finished my comedy writing and performance degree at university. I'd been working for a year in the north of England for a charity, and I was running therapeutic comedy programs for this organization, plus doing loads of different other stuff. We were based in a prison. I was creating networks of support outside of treatment and things like that. So we were kind of creating these networks and connecting people, and then catching people as they come out of prison, and kind of, we were training people, coaches, that they would go in. They were people in recovery who'd been in prison. They would go in, make friends with somebody who was due to be released in 6 months, then meet them at the gate, and then get them, around good people straight away, without always having to rely on professionals and key workers. So it was basically just getting underneath the already existing recovery networks. Anyway, I was working for them, but it's the north of England, and it's just not big enough for me. And I was just like, I will do a year here. Okay. I will do 1 year, because I'm from the south as well. It's like a totally different world. Um, but even the South, too small. It's just too small in England. I love
Yeah.
it, don't get me wrong. But yeah, so I was like, I'll do 1 year here and then I think I need to go. And then Canada dropped into my consciousness, just dropped in, and I went to work and I said, I'm going to go to Canada. And as soon as I stepped off the plane, I just felt like I had to live here. And I didn't know
Nice.
how, I didn't know. And I've been to a lot of different countries in the world. I've never felt like that. There was something very peaceful and calm about BC, Vancouver. And something just went, you're going to stay here. And then I ended up meeting my partner, who's now my business partner as well, and also training to become a therapist as well, which was my way of staying in the country.
Nice.
And here I am 5 years later, literally to the day, like, I don't know, 20th of August, 5 years
Nice.
ago, I arrived here and I
Hey.
love it.
That's right. That's right. And that's important, right? Starting over, getting that fresh start. I have yet to visit Canada. I'm in New York. I could drive there. I have a lot of family out there, and I think I might make that trip. You have a big energy. I feel LA when I see you. I'm like LA. I see you on the talk shows. I mean, you have all-star energy, and I love that about you. Can we talk about laughter? And let's talk about laughter as in a way of healing. How do you use laughter as healing? And just for background to everyone listening, Hilarapy. Can you tell us first about Hilarapy and how that works and how you and your company and
Yeah, sure. So I'm a comedian. I wrote about my own story and put it in stand up. I did a research project at university. Can I use comedy as a therapeutic tool to smash the stigma surrounding addiction and mental health? And then I did this big project, did loads of research, created this show. And then a psychiatrist saw it on YouTube and invited me to come and perform it for their mental health awareness day, where I was mad 20 years before, right? And then somebody else saw it and it snowballed, and then it just began like that. So I started to perform my story through comedy, and realized what a powerful effect it had. Also, I did it for staff. So I started to be able to train staff about what it's like to be a patient in a psychiatric ward, and create more awareness, start more conversations, and basically talk about stuff that people don't talk about. And then people come up to me and go, oh, I've got bipolar and I never tell anyone, and thank you for so then I realized, okay, there's this huge power in being vulnerable and sharing my story, but also there's an even bigger power with putting it in comedy, because when we put it in comedy, we infuse it with a sense of joy and togetherness. And when we laugh about it, when I can talk about something from a place of wellness and people in the audience, that's hugely powerful. And even if it's not your exact story, you can look at me and go, hang on a minute, she's all right. and I went through that. Maybe I am all right, because self-stigma, which is when you turn it in on yourself, is the biggest barrier to getting well from mental health issues. Did you know that?
no,
Because people, if you've got, first of all, say if you've got really difficult feelings like depression, anxiety, bipolar, like those kind of things, whatever come under that category, then somebody tells you there's something wrong with you. You're schizophrenic, you're bipolar, you've got this. Not only do you have to deal with that, but you've also got to deal with the fact that somebody's saying there's something wrong with you. So there's this like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And then what do people think about people with mental? Anyway, I'm not going to go down that route.
No, it's a good way because, well, one thing, let me say this, the podcast is predominantly about sobriety, mental health, and recovery. So that's a beautiful thing because a large amount of our audience deal with mental health, and I cover extensive mental health subjects. And that stigma is something that we're fighting every day to break. We had a certain amount of doctors on here. I talk about it a lot, how our brains change through neuroplasticity, how trauma affects us. And I have people that's really still struggling, right? And no matter what they try, it's hard for them. So I really want you to, like, that. It's very good that you're talking about that, breaking that self-stigma, because if you could find humor in your own situation, that's a point of healing. I remember specifically for me, and this was deep, I remember when I was so intense in my recovery the first couple of months. I'm like this. I was serious. I was rigid. It was hard for me to really unwind. And then one of my friends said, you know, wouldn't it be funny if one day we'll just look back and laugh at all of this and all of the stuff we used to do? And for me, it was all of this carnage. And then now we sit down and we be laughing and rolling on the floor about all of the bizarre things we used to do and all of the different I mean, I have stories for days, so I get it. But that was therapeutic. I wasn't always able to go there. So I'm glad you're talking about that. The mental health aspect is really real. So self-stigma, you could continue self-stigma, the mental health aspect.
Yeah, so that was so what happened was a friend of mine in recovery is also a comedian as well. This is back when I was living in Manchester in England.
Okay.
And another friend started a dry bar on the weekends out of a cafe in the Northern Quarter. And and she said, Lizzie, do you want to do a comedy night for us? And I said, okay. So I grabbed my friend and I said, let's do a comedy night. We'll call it Addictive Comedy. And of course, everybody came from recovery, right? So we just had this audience bringing their friends. And it was this vibe was like nothing you've ever seen in a comedy club ever, right? Because in comedy clubs, you're in your little groups and, you know, and it's drink another drink, and then some comedian gets up. But this was like everybody was talking to each other before the show started. If they didn't know each other, they were introducing each other. And then because we started to do this, and then I started to run comedy courses like paid for by drug and alcohol services.
Yes,
and then we would get the graduates and put them into this addictive comedy show. And we would get drug and alcohol services to bus people from treatment and all sorts from like the surrounding like towns and villages outside of Manchester, bring them into our comedy night. And it was like the energy of it, mate. The energy was so brilliant. And it just seemed to be like, well, right, we've got a community around comedy. And people were supportive. And because they were so supportive, the performers were performing like 100 times better than you would if you were just on your own. I'm going to take my piece of comedy and try it in some, you know, club in the middle of, you know, whatever. Nobody gives a shit about me. Everybody's drinking. You're just a nobody.
I love it.
Yeah, here you are, like actually being loved. You could get up on stage and go, and people would go, yeah, you're brilliant. We were just enjoying that vibe. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that became a model for my business, and I thought, okay. Then when I became a therapist, I realized that we could add really deep, vulnerable therapeutic sessions in with the comedy course and process some of that stuff while it's big and up for us, and then after that pull out the humorous part, so that we're not making a joke out of stuff that we haven't actually had a chance to process. Because that's not what I teach people. I don't say, okay, here's your trauma, let's make it funny.
Yes.
It's like, what's coming up for you? And then let's get some connection there. Let's remind ourselves. Let's switch the focus from love back to love, from fear to love.
Fear to love. That's
the miracle, isn't it? That is the miracle.
Absolutely.
A shift in perception from fear to love.
Absolutely.
I'm getting shivers. You getting those
Hey, me too. There we go. Let's do it. And you know why? Because our friend, and he's from London, Dr. Rob Kelly, he talks about when you have a psychic and spiritual change, it can have a DNA change. And that's where that real healing comes through. So you shift from fear to love, and that's just totally transformative. Look at that. Hey, you didn't lose your spiritual power because you got sober. It just got stronger, right? There we go.
I just had time for a relationship with God.
That's right.
You know? And when I say God, I always just want to say this, that I'm not talking about God in a religious way. I'm talking about God as source of love, source of everything, infinite intelligence, all that is, all that was, all that ever will be. And I am one and part of that.
That's right. So yeah, that's right. And my brother expands on that. He always tells me in Lakesh, which means I'm another you. So being that, I believe that we're all part of the all, and God is the all encompassing, the source. So we are one and the same, and one together, mirroring each other. So isn't that beautiful? Yes, God is good. And I'm glad we to make that distinction, because when you're dealing with recovery, you want to have the most say the safest description and idea of God, not because people get scared and sometimes dogma could chase people away. And there's so many denominations. I figure God, the concept of God should always be inclusive. But I tell you this much, without God, my butt would be in trouble. Cause I was like you, I was so passionate and I knew God and I loved God and I was out there. You would think I was a prophet. I'd be on 42nd Street in New York preaching and talking and crowds of people. They'd be like, look at this kid go. I could walk on the train and have the whole train just quiet and just start going. And then when I got sober, it was like, where did all of that go? Where did all of that go? And God said, it's in you, it's refined in you. So now we're just bringing it up to the fore. So I'm so excited. You have something called the Power Series in your therapy. Can you talk to us about the Power Series? Is help people go deep. It's you in the Power Series. I love the topic. I love it. It was empowerment.
Yeah, those are our webinar topics. So it's just we teach a free lesson. I teach a free lesson every month if anyone wants to jump on. The next one is using the power of therapeutic comedy to change your world, not the world, your world.
Ah, your
Which,
world.
of course, does have the knock-on effect of, having bigger influence on the world.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things I want to
Go ahead. You
tell
got
you. So we've got this on, like what I've done is we did courses, but now we've moved everything into a kind of online membership area, which means that it's a community that goes on and on and on. So instead of just signing up for 10 weeks, you could do a monthly membership and then come to live Zoom therapeutic sessions and comedy workshopping sessions and work with other people and all of that stuff. So that's what's happened since COVID. That's what we've had to do. But also I want to tell you that I'm co-hosting a recovery event, and it's the biggest online recovery event ever in Canada.
Yes,
and
Recovery Day Festival, right?
That's right. I bet you were going to get
God.
that, weren't you?
Yeah, but I'm so excited. Macklemore's going to be talking. You're covering it. And so tell us about that. I'm excited. I couldn't wait to get to that.
Oh, sorry.
No, we good. We family. We kicking it. But tell Recovery Day Festival for everyone is September 5th, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, which will be a different time in New York, right?
Yeah, yes.
3 hours later.
Yes.
3 hours later. So I better get you the timings for that as well. Well, it's just brilliant. It's going to be for an hour and a half, and we've got Mad Child and Macklemore joining us, and I absolutely love Macklemore. I just think
me too.
Legend.
Too. Yeah,
I love that thrift shop. 1.5 billion views he's got on that thrift shop video.
Wow, yeah. 1.5 billion. Look at that. From recovery, the day he chose himself. You see how that works?
Yeah.
I remember when I first got sober, his album dropped. It was around 2011, 2012. I remember, and I was listening to this and I was like, man, this guy's talking about recovery, but he really could rap. And it was so cool just hearing him. That did a lot for me initially. And I have to give him props because that's going all the way back to like week 1 and all of that. But I had his album and I would listen to it. So I'm excited. So you're doing you're covering some stand-up?
No, I'm co-hosting it. So it's all going to happen. Yeah, I'm speaking to him. So it's another guy, Darren, who's awesome. And we will be in this, I just can't tell you exactly what the space is, but there's 3 areas. There's going to be a recovery tree.
Okay.
So, like a memory tree. So people can say who they've lost and we'll put them on the recovery tree. There's going to be a recovery wall. So you can give us your clean time and it will all go on the wall. And then we've got Macklemore and a house band as well. So we'll be switching between different stages, me and this other guy, and I'm just hosting it. But I'm really pumped that they asked me to do it.
I'm pumped too. That's so exciting. I mean, definitely tell Macklemore we said that, he's influential. He did a great job. I'm going to tune in, actually. I want to be there. I want to support you. I'm going to make sure my schedule. Everybody, so clear your schedule for September 5th. And also, I'll post it on Instagram and stuff and tag you and all of that. Also, look at that. So you're meeting people. You're out there. You're living your dream. You're thriving in your recovery. Are you happy now? We talk about happy sometimes. You look good. I'm
like a child.
You look good.
Because when I was young, I used to go into the garden and I could just I could just pull things out and just go, this is the magical world we live in. And then
Yes.
drugs took over, and it was just like everything went gray. Or at least if I didn't have drugs, everything was gray.
Yeah.
And then now in recovery, I feel like I'm always discovering new experiences of myself emotionally and creatively and out in the world. It's like I've got so many cool friends, like
Yes.
80-year-old friends, 76-year-old friends. Like I love old people. Like old people
Yes.
are like, I think that's my biggest fan base when it comes to doing comedy in my local area.
All right.
I've got loads of grey hair in the audience. I think the ladies love me.
They get it. They've been through it all. They know.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with
Me
that.
too. Me too. Oh man, you know, and this is what I'm talking about because look, I couldn't have like even back when I look back, if I was trying to have a meaningful conversation with it would have went dark eventually. And I love the fact that we could sit here and reminisce and just be bright and feel good. I feel you, and you look great. And that's the thing I tell people: our recovery gives us back our swag. We look good. It gives us back not just that, our integrity, and it gives us a foundation to grow on. So I'm excited to see where you're gonna go. We got to get you on Ellen, Oprah, and all of that stuff. We got to get you on a big stage. It's just all in due time, right? So one thing that I did like is for your students. I want to shout out all your students. They gave me, I see them online on YouTube. So one thing that I love is that you give your students a platform to tell their authentic stories, and then they get up there and they're good. They're all like mini comedians doing their little work, and they're talking about their life, and I could see the joy in them. I have a couple of testimonies I want to read if you don't mind. Can I read some of your testimonies?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we have Terry W. He said, if I could validate and empathize myself, I would, but I need a community like Hilarapy to help me with the emotions I sometimes struggle with. It's been very helpful. And Tanya was another one that I really liked. Tanya was doing her thing, and she said, what Hilarapy has offered me is a chance and an opportunity to explore my trauma, my mental health challenges, my anxiety, my PTSD, and take a look from a little bit of a different point of view. So there's people out there that you're helping, you're doing your thing, you look good, and these students, you're giving them a platform. I wanted to ask, after they graduate, do they go on and still do stand-up? Like, do they take it to the...
Well, Tanya's doing really well. Actually, what we do is we keep the community together. So once you come through the course, you can come back and support as part of the support team. And then when you come back and you support, you continue to, you know, be part of the group therapy, be part of the group work processing of comedy workshopping. We always help each other with our jokes. And all of my graduates, I just said, you know, you can have 12 months free on my membership. So they come and they do the sessions and stuff like that. So everyone stays connected if they want.
If they want.
But some people just come in and they're like, I just want to do this. I don't want to be a comedian, but I want the confidence and I want to know that I did it. Yes. And then it kind of opens stuff up for them, because these are transferable skills, aren't they? If you can get up and do something like that on stage, you can pretty much like swag around your office and be confident in yourself, which is what it's about.
Yes. And you said something for me, because as an artist, sometimes, you know, you get that stage fright tend to never go away. You know, you have a show or something, you're like, but you get a little bit more confidence. But I love when you said that when you described that everyone was in that supportive environment. So even if you was like, they'll go, you're awesome. And then, you know, when you have to go in private somewhere far away and test your material in front of some strange audience. So I like the fact that you're helping people build confidence, and that's a skill. And even for me, I'm still learning how. It took a lot for me to get to the point where I could do the podcast, even on video. Like at the first year, I did no video or nothing like that. I just got to this stage in my recovery where I was like, I was comfortable with how I looked. You know, I realized that if I was going to get to my most chiseled bodybuilder, I would have to postpone the video process for 3 more years. So I said, look, you're gonna have to go on with your little COVID weight, and you're gonna have to deal with it. but that's part of growth. I'm finally accepting myself and the fact that I actually grew up, right? I just turned 40 in September. I'm about to be turned 41 this September. And in my mind, sometimes I have to remember, man, you 41. And I still have this heart of a kid, man, and that joy. And I wouldn't let the fact that I got sober take away that joy. And, you know, sometimes you feel like people, like my friend, I had a friend that called me the other day and said your music was way more exciting when you was like, and I was offended. I'm like, excited? Like, what are you trying to say, man? I'm like, I'm still the same guy. He was like, yeah, but. So I was like, you know what? Take my new material, call me back, sit with it, tell me what you think. And he called me back and was like, you know what, man? I tell you this much, you're not as exciting, but you way more. It's well organized, and I love it as well. So I'm learning to be me and grow in that way. And I love the fact that there's people out there like you. I'm doing your thing, helping people grow. We're creating change. So I want to talk about our mutual friend, your sister, who introduced us, and she bought
Yeah.
the Sober is Dope shirt for her and dad. I saw dad in the picture with it, and your sister. I just wanted to shout out Becca. Becca, what's up? We here. We did it.
Like
Thank
my
you.
sister. Oh,
She's so sweet. She sent me that pic. She bought it, and then she was so patient because it took forever because of COVID for her to get her shirt. It took almost like 2 months. So she was so sweet, and so that brings me to family. So was your recovery the catalyst to help with the family, or was it like, because the same thing in my family? Everyone kind of try to work on the sober tip because of me, and I think my sobriety helped them. Is that your case?
I think eventually, but you know, actually, it was my brother was struggling
Okay.
a few years, well, 2 or 3 years ago, and my mum went to Al-Anon. I
Okay.
shouldn't say that, should I?
No,
Should
you, hey,
okay.
sober's dope. We can say
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah. So she went to that, and then she was like, "Oh, I realized that maybe I need AA." So she went,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
finally my sister got in as well. But I was a front runner. My dad's already in recovery. He's been in
Okay.
recovery my whole life. But my sister's so functioning.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, you
Yes.
know, for the more functioning amongst us, it can
Yes.
be very hard to stop. But you know, she's doing all our social media. She's really helping me out with the business from over in England, and I really appreciate her. And I'm so happy she's in recovery because we've got
Yes.
that language now, and I know that she's got the people around her that are helping her thrive, and she really is thriving. So I'm
Yes.
really glad about that for sure. And actually, you've given me a really good idea. I'm going to get your Sober is Dope t-shirt. I'm going
Okay.
to wear it on recovery day with Macklemore, okay? And
Oh,
I'm going to give you a shout out, okay? And I'm
that's
where's
what's
your
up.
t-shirt, Macklemore?
Oh my God. We gonna work it out. I'm gonna hook you up. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
good. You just made my day. Hey, we work together, and that's
yeah,
how it goes.
yeah.
So Lizzie, I want you what so look, I want to give you the floor. First, I want to say to you, thank you so much. Talking to you, I have so much joy, and you give off a really good energy. And I think our conversation was therapeutic, and it's going to be for many people. I'm definitely part of your team. I love what you do. I want to bring people in. I'm going to help support because, you know, comedic therapy is a beautiful thing, right? And healing with humor, I love that. To letting people know we're in New York. We're too serious out here. I'm talking about. I walk down the. Excuse me, ma'am. You have the time. Excuse me, sir. Wait. No. Nobody's gonna talk to me today. So I learned to lighten up my life. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And there's one thing I want to say before I give you the floor. You did something that it was on Instagram that was so beautiful. I want you to break it down for me. You was at a lake and you was screaming, "I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore." And it was part of a vision board you was doing with your friends, and that was so beautiful. And I felt it, and I'm going to do that. I have a pond by me. I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna videotape it, I'm gonna say I'm not afraid anymore. So ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. Lizzie Allan, tell us about that. That's so inspirational.
I've got a couple of friends I make comedy with, Karina and Ellen,
Yeah.
and we're like a little crew. We've been doing it since we're friends in recovery. I met them in the recovery around here, and they really helped me get Hilarapy off the ground here in Vancouver. No, not
It's
now.
all good. It's all good.
Not
Hey,
now.
that's the comedy. That had to have. I love it.
No, we don't use you. It'll be some.
Oh
Who?
man.
Sorry about that.
No, it's so good. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and we went out there and we made a vision board. Was my friend's mum's place. We went and stayed there, and we spent the afternoon making a vision board about addictive comedy. We've rebranded to Hilarapy, but it was addictive comedy because
Got it.
the start of it, right? And on that we've put Oprah, we put Ellen, we put it all, right? And we put like making da da da, and it's coming true. It's coming true. That was 2 years ago. All of it's coming true.
Wow.
Let me tell you something.
Yes.
We are wemaking a docu-series.
Nice.
And it's called Hilarapy, a Traumedy series.
Nice.
And we've sold the rights to make that to a producer to a production company, and we'll be making it at the end of the year. We've got a physical space.
Nice.
Hilarapy Studios, which is under construction, and it's going to be set up with camera positions and tech and everything, because we're going to be making content. Because that's where it is. That's where it's at, right?
That's where it's at.
I invite you to come and stay with me and do some stuff for us over there.
I would love that. I would love that.
For
I would
sure.
love that for sure, for real.
Maybe we could do some sort of like a collaboration on teaching. You could do some rapping teaching or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put on a course and put on like
a show or something. Absolutely, I love that.
And then make it go live as well.
That's right. That's right. There we have it. There we have it. So can you, well, one, thank you so much, Lizzie, for coming on. I know you're very busy. You're doing big things. And for anyone who wants to reach you, can you give everybody how they can tell them how they can find you, where they can find you on social media? Of course, I'll put everything in the show notes, but this is you. I'm giving you the floor. Give any advice, say anything that you want to say to the community. We're listening, and you have it.
Yeah, of course, you can get hold of me or us through Hilarapy on all our social media channels, and you can go to hilarapy.com. And if you want to kind of join in and work with me personally, then come to hilarapyhub.com, where you can just kind of sign up. You can try it for a month for free, come and do some classes, learn how to use therapeutic comedy to share your story.
Yes.
And that's about all I can say. Just follow us on social media. My sister just would love you to follow us on social media, because she has the terrible job of trying to, it's like a sort of bouncing a stick on a drum, isn't it?
I know. It's
so
but we'll get there. We'll get there. And well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. You're listening to the Sober is Dope podcast. That's our special guest today, Lizzie Allan, who's changing the world through humor and comedy and her own recovery journey. I love you all. Take care, and I'll catch you on the other side.